This episode of Reality Escape Pod is brought to you by Morty, Cogs by Clockwork Dog, Buzzshot, and Patreon supporters like you. Hey escape room owners, are you sick of trying to figure out the marketing puzzle? Buzzshot's got you covered. It's an all-in-one solution for powering business growth and improving the customer experience. They offer a ton of pre- and post-game features, including waiver management, creating incredible branded team photos, and streamlined review management for Yelp, TripAdvisor, Google Reviews, Facebook Reviews, and they offer integrations with Cogs and Morty.
We here at Room Escape Artist know just how expensive mailing list software can get. Did you know that Buzzshot has email broadcasts and customer surveys built in? Buzzshot allows you to create professional, personalized, and timely marketing emails and feedback surveys using easy-to-edit templates and variable content. Buzzshot helps you collect player and marketing data and enhances your customer communications, allowing you to deliver more meaningful messages to your customers.
Shannon of the Grape Escape had this to say: Buzzshot helped completely legitimize our business and make us look like rock stars above our competition. Streamline your marketing and grow your escape room business. REPOD listeners get an extended free trial and 20% off your first 3 months with no setup fees or hidden charges. Visit buzzshot.com/REPOD. That's REPOD to learn more.
Welcome to the Reality Escape Pod, your lifeline when you need a getaway from the real world. I'm David Spira, alongside my co-host, PG Law. Together, we're exploring immersive gaming from all angles, and we'll be joined by guests who really know their stuff. Today's guest is Jeroen van Hasselt, creative director and game designer at Entered in Belgium. Since 2018, he and his team have been producing memorable, intense, and unusual immersive games. Their most recent production, the 4-hour-long Demise of the Gricers, has pushed on a variety of creative boundaries that we are eager to explore. Welcome, Jeroen.
Thank you. Wow, that sounded amazing. Listening to that, I was like, that's really cool. That sounded really well, and already it made me a little bit proud.
You should be. You've made some really cool stuff, and we're excited to explore it today.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Your work has not only pushed on a lot of your own creative boundaries, but it pushed on a lot of my personal boundaries as well, but for the better. I felt challenged and exhilarated when I came to play your game, Demise of the Gricers, but we'll get to that later on in the interview. I wanted to talk first about how your work, it seems to have a singular through line. Talk to us about the appeal of games that revolve around an unusual mechanic.
It's actually how I start building games and how I start with anything. So I'm a game designer. I come from the video game industry. This is how I've been taught to design games, and this is also the lens I work through. But already in my game design studies, I was specializing really on the mechanics because I'm interested about interactivity. The thing to interact with what you're creating is the game mechanic. And already I felt, okay, if we start with this being unique or different, because I love doing new things, that's actually what excites me the most. So when building Demise of the Gricers, for example, and I'm not sure if I should already delve into this immediately, but the first thing we started with is the vision. Okay, we need to have a mechanic that has to do something with trains. And we really did a lot of brainstorming on this, and we tried to think of trains on an abstract level. And to think about it in an abstract level means, like, what is a train? A train is a transport vehicle that brings something from A to B. But the unique thing about a train, unlike cars or boats or airplanes that are free to move around, a train is limited in its freedom because it's always attached to rails. And that was the trigger for us, like, okay, hey, maybe we can do something with that. And maybe if we can let the players feel limited in their freedom as well, following tracks, that served as the inspiration for the game. And obviously you're not there yet, because then you have to test it, because you have no idea if this is going to be fun. And we play tested it with very paper prototype, and I have some amazing photos of this thing because it looked so bare bones. But the cool thing about it was, after the first playtest, which was like 45 minutes or something. And it was just like you had to find a key and some basic mission design. The cool thing was the players afterwards wanted to play again. They wanted to do it again because they felt like they got better at it and they were smarter and they wanted to do it differently. And that to me was like, okay, there's something there. Let's try to evolve this and develop it further.
This context is incredibly helpful, and we're going to come back around to Demise of the Gricers later on in the interview. I wanted to open with the unusual mechanics because we're going to be revisiting this topic throughout our conversation. It's going to be our rails.
Nice.
Let's shift to your earliest game, which grew out of a university project. Tell me about The Flock.
I'm very excited because that's still a very passionate project of mine. It indeed grew out of university, and indeed it started with the game mechanic. Well, the simplest way to explain it, it's like a red light, green light, I think it's called in the USA.
Correct.
And I also had already a growing passion about horror games. This was already from a young age. So I wanted to create a tense version, even though we didn't think of red light, green light the first time we built this. So to explain a little bit more, it was a multiplayer video game. There were monsters and there was the more humanoid being. And as the players, you could play both sides. So you would be hunted by real players. And that was very new and unique back in the time. Now there are more versions and games like this. Now imagine you're a humanoid player. You're on your own because the human player was solo. And you would be hunted by 4 monsters. So already you would feel at a disadvantage. And if the monster would get you, that monster would switch roles. So that monster would become the new human player, would evolve, and then would be hunted again by 4 other players. Now the twist was that while you were the human, you would have a big flashlight, and the monsters were not allowed to move into that light, because then they would get burned and die. But if they would stand still, they would turn into stone and they would be safe from the light. Now I'm going to get you through a scenario what this would mean for the gameplay. Now you're walking as a human, you were holding this light artifact in your hand, you're looking around, and all of a sudden you'll hear a noise behind you. You'll turn around quick enough, shining a light, and then bam, right in front of you was just a monster right about to pound you, but turned in stone on time. And you know that as a player wanting to grab you, and you're holding your light because now it cannot get you, but you don't want to dare to look away. And now there's the twist. Obviously, there are more monsters, so maybe you hear a monster from different directions. Yeah, then you have to get away. And obviously, there were more upgrades and things to it, but that basic sense in itself, and we tested real life before we tried to build a video game, was already so exciting. And during our study, we managed to build a really exciting demo, and we got a lot of press out of it because people thought it was so unique, and then totally exploded. We got investments on board from famous developers. We kept on developing out of school, so that was pretty exciting. Only the unfortunate thing was just about when we had the height of everything, we launched it. We totally failed because we were students. We were way too ambitious. We had some technical difficulties. It launched just when Windows 10 was like a free upgrade, and our game did not work on Windows 10. So that was like a horrible scenario. We also realized that we were very good at making the demo and the basic content, but for a multiplayer game, you really have to deliver enough content to keep engaging your players. So unfortunately, it was not a big success when it released, but it got us all the learnings. And because I was still in school, it opened so many doors for me after that.
I want to play the real life version of that. That sounds so much fun.
That's good. Maybe I could tease it a little bit because we are actually trying to build that.
I'm very into the idea. There's one extra core mechanic that you didn't mention that I find really interesting and appealing, and it's this idea that the creatures that the players are embodying are slowly going extinct over the course of play because there's a finite number of them.
Yes.
And every time a player dies, that number ticks down by 1, and eventually the game itself depopulates with characters and shuts down.
Yeah, this was so cool. I was so hyped about this. And I guess this already betrayed my feelings for eventful things and also connection with real life. Our idea was that because we were not interested in maintaining this multiplayer game forever, and we also felt that back at the time, there were many interesting multiplayer games, but they died out at some point. And I felt, why should we wait till playing on the scramble? Why shouldn't we just give it an end ourselves? And what if we made it that ending was part of a story? The idea was after some population died, then the game would change. And at some point, at the very end, there would only be like a few lives left. We had some sponsors and brands to come together. We would have this big event where they would fly over, play the final matches of the game. With the help of sponsors, we had Intel and Monster ready to help achieve this. And record that moment and only have the ending for that game viewable by the last 5 players or so. Yeah, I thought this was just really interesting and also like an event and also something you would just have to be there, but also it would solve a lot of design issues I had in my mind, like, hey, how are we going to maintain this game? What if we just make it an end to ourselves? And this definitely got a lot of attention. We even went out of the video game industry press, where I remember, for example, the Mary Sue was even writing about this and some other big publications which had not much to do with video games. That meant to me that we had something special, but also, unfortunately, the gamers were not so happy about this. They were very worried that the big publishers like EA or Ubisoft would steal this idea and use it for their multiplayer games. And then they were really angry about this, that their games would end at some point and that they couldn't play it anymore.
Because you're talking about permanent game over.
Yes.
Not just game over and restart.
Yes, nobody could play it ever again.
It's a self-destructing game.
Yeah.
I hadn't thought about, when you're thinking about this from the perspective of like art house indie game, the mechanic is really cool. When you stop and think about it from the perspective of multinational AAA companies doing this, it gets really ugly really quickly as it shifts from artistic statement to business model.
Yep, we definitely felt that. And because we had so much press attention on this, they also thought we were way bigger. There was a lot of got lost in translation. A lot of people didn't know we were just a small student company, because we were also aiming quite high with the graphics back at the time. I mean, nowadays this looks like nothing. It's very easy to make it way more technical. But people were very worried about this, and that definitely backfired in a way I did not expect. But we did learn a lot from it.
So you've acknowledged already the launch of this was botched for a lot of different reasons.
Yes.
I am curious, looking back now, and you did a whole talk on this subject shortly after it happened, which we'll put into the show notes. It's worth watching. But you have a lot more perspective now and a lot more distance from it now than when you gave that talk. I'm curious, looking back with your knowledge and ability and leadership of today, what was your biggest lesson from that mismanaged launch?
My biggest lesson, which I did not talk about in my talk because at that point in time I couldn't, is the way we managed our team. As we're all students, and even though I was leading this student group, we were also on the same level. I paid some of them, and some of them were just in it for some shares, and we had no idea how to run a business. We were just making a cool game, and that meant that I didn't have much control on what we should do after it failed or how we should progress. We went into it like equals, and always I tried to make them build something by convincing them or showing them that this is the right way, and that worked really well for a long time until it did not. And then things crumble really fast. So that's why after that, I went to the USA and worked for a creative director. And he taught me a lot. And I was working for someone. And that was definitely some experience I needed.
We're going to talk a little bit more about some more games that we can't play. So there are a pair of games that entered Made that are no longer available. Can you tell us a little bit about I Can Hear You? What is the premise and core mechanic that you built for that game?
Sure. The reason I wanted to switch to real life games was not something that just came out of the blue. After I worked in the USA, I worked for a creative director, and the most important thing he taught me is he kicked out my ego. He said, Jeroen, you need to lose your ego. You think you need to be the mastermind that comes up with the genius idea, and that's bullshit. A job of a creative director is to create a vision so that your whole team knows what you're trying to build, and they can all add ideas to that.
Yes.
Yes, and the important thing as a creative director is to make sure that the vision is understood by everyone, and then even your janitor, for symbolism, could add the idea. Like everybody can add an idea if they know what you're trying to build. That was very important to me. I just need to make sure that the vision is aligned, that everybody understands this vision, and then recognize the ideas that everybody can contribute. So after the USA, I worked on a game called Planetary Pioneers, which is a Metroidvania, which probably will also ring some bells where I got that experience.
Interesting.
Yes, indeed. And yeah, a little bit of foreshadowing. So in my free time, what I loved to do was building adventures for my friends. And I did that a lot, and especially during college. And how these adventures would go was always with a phone call. I would ring my friend and he will tell me like, hey, what's up? Why are you calling me? And I'll ask him, yeah, are you ready? He'll sound confused. It's like, ready for what? Yeah, ready for the adventure. And if you're going to join, you have to be at this station, this time, and be there. Otherwise, you'll miss it. He'll ask me like, what? But when will I be back? What are we going to do? And I'd just tell him, you can only know this if you join. If you're not going to join, you're not going to know. That's it. And that was so exciting for a lot of people. And of course, back at the time, we could do this because we didn't have much responsibilities. And these adventures just grew in the most amazing trips and nights out and weekends away or whatever. It was truly amazing. But the thing that triggered me during one of these adventures was when a friend joined. And this was the first time he joined. And he was very busy. He was already working as a lawyer for one of the big three in the Netherlands. And he actually, during the adventures, was already 2 a.m. And he was a little bit tearing up, almost crying. And I would come to him and ask him like, hey, what's up? Just checking in. How are you feeling? And he told me that he felt alive for the first time in a long time. He had been working so much. His weeks had been so predictable. He was really a cog in a machine. And he said he was truly amazed that because he already had in his mind how his night would unfold. And this had totally disrupted and changed that. He said that he felt free all of a sudden. He felt like, oh, I could do so much more. Why am I just so stuck in this rut? And he felt emotions that he hadn't felt for a long time. And he told me, you should do something with this. You have so much fun and passion for this, but you really should do something with this because I think this is something special. And I thought, yeah, thank you. I really appreciate that. And it did touch me. But I also wondered, how can you earn money with this? I want like real life experiences. I don't know.
Doesn't scale like a video game, that's for sure.
Exactly. It doesn't scale like a video game as well. And it's also like, I just had no idea.
But scaling was his kryptonite, so this is perfect.
That's true. That is true. So I also thought there is something there for sure. And then I learned about a thing called escape rooms. I don't know if you've heard of that.
I think I've heard about those.
I played one and it was a good experience, but I also felt it was not for me. But I also was super excited about it because escape rooms basically showed me you can build an immersive kind of experience. It is like an adventure, but with puzzles or whatever. And totally thought, yeah, this is just like the puzzle genre. I'm not from the puzzle genre. I like to build different genres, but I saw the possibilities. Probably will be hard, but let's see. I worked for Gloedraad, which is an escape room building company who built, for example, Chernobyl or Corpse Inc. So I worked with them to build some escape rooms, just some experiences. And also Prison Escape, which is like a big live action game.
I've played it. They set it in an actual retired prison, which the Netherlands has quite a few of due to criminal justice reforms that are enviable. Moving on.
Yes, it's true. It is an actual prison, which is amazing. They now have a new location in Utrecht, and I played the latest version, and they developed amazingly. It's cool. That got my feet in, and then came this opportunity, which was like a perfect match for me. There was this guy called Tim, who is now my business partner, who had an abandoned hospital. And I did my thesis during my game design studies about horror games. And an abandoned hospital to me sounded like, yes, this is the chance to build a real life horror game. And that turned out to be I Can Hear You. And the one thing that I had many ideas in my mind, and we played this a lot, but this was my first try. And the one idea that worked so well during a playtest was a mechanic that revolved around sound. You really had to worry about what sound you would make. And yeah, it's obviously the title is giving it away a little bit. I can hear you because, maybe the antagonist can hear you. So watch out what you produce in terms of sound.
So how did this mechanic work, since this game is no longer operable?
Maybe something exciting to share is that we signed a new contract and we're going to bring I Can Hear You back.
Ooh.
Oh.
And I've not shared this anywhere publicly yet. We're going to do this soonish, but I think this will take some time before this airs. But when it airs, it's probably, hopefully, be out there. And otherwise, you'll have a scoop. But I Can Hear You is definitely coming back.
Well, then I retract the question.
I need a year to recover from Demise of the Gricers before I do another big blockbuster entered game. So I'm excited to hear about it after that relaunches.
Nice. Cool to hear. Yeah, you're always welcome.
Congratulations on having a new venue. That is exciting to be able to bring back old work.
Yes, for sure. Because at that time, we were not connected to the escape room industry at all. Only at the very last stretch of I Can Hear You. So it already opened in 2018 and then in 2021. And we had no idea, but we were part of the Turpicast, I think in some place like 52 or something, with only 7 nominations because so little people had played it. And that opened the doors for us to the escape room industry because we had very little escape room players.
That's a great debut number, honestly.
Yeah, thank you.
In the world.
And it was already 3 years old back then. Because it was blown up, we felt like people already wanted to play it a lot and they were regretting that they couldn't play it anymore. And I know that Heiner, the famous German for the Turpicast, he's still mad. Like he says it haunts his dream that he couldn't play this game.
The man loves his horror.
For sure. He was one of the first to play Demise of the Gricers when it was actually still in beta. And I think that was one of the first stepping stones for us to become bigger in the escape room industry.
That makes sense. He's the one who's always letting us know when something new is interesting and wonderful. We're taking a moment to thank our sponsor, Morty. Morty is a free app for discovering, booking, tracking, and reviewing escape rooms, haunts, and other immersive social outings. Morty is available for all to use on its fantastic website experience, iPhone and Android apps. I believe in Morty so much that I have a stake in it as an advisor.
David, I just found out that some enthusiasts I know who have played hundreds of games still have not yet migrated their tracking list to Morty. And this is blowing my mind. Like, to me, there is a pleasure in going through my list of games in Morty. There's photos. I can list all of my stats on there. It's just beautiful. But I think it's because they didn't know that Morty will help you import your list into their app. So rather than just have it on a plain old boring spreadsheet, you can send that spreadsheet over to Morty and they will import all of your games so you can start tracking on the Morty app.
I know, because I did this. In fact, when I first spoke to Morty, the very first conversation that I had with them, I said, the only way that you are ever going to get me on this app is if you can help get my games in, because I'm not putting thousands of games in. And they delivered. And that's how I got into the app in the first place. I love that this feature is here. It's not for everybody, but for those of us who need it, it is incredible. You can learn more at morty.app/repod. That's REPOD to sign up and get a special badge for our listeners. Link and details in the show notes. Since we can't talk about the mechanic of I Can Hear You, I'll ask the same question. You had a second experience that is no longer available and presumably not coming back, called The Nightmare of Evelyn's Shadow.
Yes.
Tell us about that one.
First things first, Nightmare of Evelyn's Shadow was a collaboration between Entered and Logic Logs. And Logic Logs is from Alexander Gilholz, a previous guest on your show.
One of my personal favorite episodes, by the way.
Nice. I really enjoyed that one as well. I think he tipped on the end to the Demise of the Gricers when we were still building it because he was part of the play test in the beginning and he was already very hyped about it.
He did, and yes, he was very hyped about it, and I had no idea what he was talking about.
Yeah, it's hard to explain in just a few sentences. Anyway, he had asked me and Maggie. Maggie is another designer who is very talented, also works on video games and serious games, but also with LARPs. And she's a genuine, very good designer with breaking the mechanics and the immersion world. And the three of us started out with a venue, which was the Marriott Renaissance Hotel in the heart of Amsterdam. And they had a wing, an hotel wing available to use because it was going to be renovated in a few years down the line, like it would take a long time. And COVID just started and they thought, well, our bookings are down so much. We only have 10% that's been occupied that we can easily serve in just the main building. So this whole hotel wing, more than 5,000 square meters, you guys can use to build some cool immersive experience. We could go pretty nuts. And we thought, because the hotel really had the Shining kind of vibe in a cool way with the blue aesthetics instead of red, Maggie really felt the idea of doing something with a writer. And this was Evelyn Shadow.
Evelyn Shadow is the name of this writer character.
Yes, Evelyn Shadow, the famous horror novelist. That's how it's pronounced in the trailer. We wanted to go somewhere that players felt they were part of a book. They were part of a story. And when you would book this experience, you would have this invitation. And there was something weird about this invitation because it's written in third person. And it would say like, they arrived at blah, blah, blah time at the check-in desk. They checked in. It all went normal. And they asked about the famous horror novelist Evelyn Shadow because they knew she was staying here. So it's written as something that already had happened. And players would do this. They would check in and they find something there that exactly describes the experience they just had. So now they're reading something that had just happened in the experience. Okay, so things are making sense now. And then all of a sudden they hear a voice of Evelyn Shadow who is narrating something out of the book, again, about them. For example, the tallest one of the group dared to open door 203. Okay, but this has not happened yet. But this is maybe a hint that's something we should do. And now all of a sudden it became a very powerful tool to do foreshadowing and do something scary. And we did some crazy things in there. And at the very end, they had to sleep in their own room because we had such a big hotel on their own, which is like almost the climax of the game.
I'm thinking, if you're open to it, I would love to have you come back on and do a full Spoilers Club episode where we explore this game, the entire thing that you had made. Maybe see if Alexander wants to come and join Maggie as well.
Then I definitely have to ask them and invite them as well. That will be cool.
Let's set that aside. But the core mechanic of this is that you're in an actual hotel that is going to be renovated. So I'm imagining it's got this creepy vibe. And then on top of that, you're basically being narrated by this writer character as you are being written into her story.
Exactly. You're written in the story, and it's not just audio narration, but we had writings everywhere. So we had projectors that projected writing on the wall, or you would find a paper prop, or the lampshades would have writing on them. And all these rooms would have this almost artistic vision of what happened to them. And we could play with that. We have letters. We could also have like photos or things. And all of that would obviously tell the story until the climax.
We will revisit this.
But that's really interesting. I mean, this is a prime example of show, don't tell, right?
Yeah, that's very important to me. I always want the mechanics to be explored or figured out during the game. And I feel I Can Hear You and The Nightmare of Evelyn Shadow did this very well.
Do you want to integrate tech into your game but don't really know where to start? Are you looking to take your experience to the next level with theatrical lighting and sound cues? Cogs by Clockwork Dog is an easy-to-use platform that will automate your escape room and immersive events. Their plug-and-play hardware works seamlessly with their software, so you can create a game with high-tech puzzles that will reliably trigger, complete with sound and lighting effects. Whether you're an absolute beginner or a seasoned pro, Cogs has a solution for you.
Cogs offers a media app that transforms any iOS or Android device into a media master. What does that mean? The app enables you to use portable wireless screens to display timers, hints, audio, video, and touch screen content throughout your experience. You can even run custom content on the app to create your own back or front of house control interfaces.
I know that the new Taskmaster Live experience in London is running off of the Cogs Media app.
It is indeed.
David, I know that you can also create some custom hint systems using Cogs.
You can make things like a fake WhatsApp interface on a mobile phone, just like they did at Sherlock, the Mind of Moriarty in London. To find out more about the media app, go check out cogs.show.
REPOD listeners get 50% off the Cogs starter set, plus free shipping to the US. Use code REPOD at checkout. That's REPOD. For any questions about using Cogs or integrating tech into your escape rooms, make sure to join the vibrant community of creators on their Discord server. Learn more and start designing your game using their free tutorial by visiting cogs.show. Link and details in the show notes.
All right, let's get to the main event and discuss Demise of the Gricers. We've been building up to this for a while. You've already alluded to a number of the different topics we're going to explore. Demise of the Gricers is set in a large train depot, indoor, outdoor, featuring real trains. You've confirmed earlier that the setting came before the concept. I'm curious to hear more about the origins of this.
Yes, we were extremely lucky because it just happened that persons of the municipality of us, where this train hangar and station is located, were playing our previous game, I Can Hear You, and they loved it. And some of them were horror enthusiasts. And they just asked us, we have this hangar here, which is empty. Can you build the same game over there as well? And we were like, we can, but we'd rather build something new and unique. And they just gave us the green light, which is nice. I'm not sure if back then we knew what we were getting into, but I'm happy we persevered. And I do have some photos still of this, but the hangar was completely empty, bar one locomotive.
That's my next question is, where did all the trains come from?
So the trains were already in the area. Outside, we viewed all the trains. We picked the ones that were the most empty because they gave the most opportunity to do something with it. And obviously, we also wanted like a nice variance of locomotives and wagons and different wagons. So some would have passenger compartments and some would have like tables, a bar, stuff like this. Very cool. And we drove these inside with the locomotive. And yeah, that's how we started.
Where do you casually find a person who can operate a train?
Again, super lucky. Somebody from the municipality was in contact with one of these and knew because they operated the station for a long time.
My other biggest question when I first learned about this game is, what the heck is a gricer?
Yeah, that's actually one of the first questions a lot of people ask. A gricer is... Okay, maybe I should tell how I came to the word gricer, because before we started building this game, we start with a vision. So this was even before the mechanic. And the vision for this game consisted out of 3 design pillars. The first design pillar was we wanted to be a horror game, a real-life horror game. We wanted to be tense. We wanted to be a different kind of horror than I Can Hear You. The second design pillar was trains. We knew we wanted to do something with trains. Not just the mechanics, but also the story, the theme, the things that you're doing. I wanted to create a small world, or the feeling of a world. Not total open world, not sandbox like LARP, but very curated and designed experience into a world where you have the feeling there's always something more to explore and give you options and freedom instead of a linear path that you're following. Those 3 were the core pillars. And I already knew from my experience from video games that to create a world, you really need world building. And that's where I started with doing research. What is this story going to originate from? And that's when I came across a gricer, a very obscure term that originated in the 60s in England. And they gave this term to rail enthusiasts, railway fanatics. This was a time when airplanes and automobiles, their popularity was on the rise. And before that time, everybody kind of loved trains, but automobiles became more accessible for the general public as well as airplanes. And these Gricers, they start to stand out more. You can even find an old news article in a paper where somebody's saying like, oh, we should save these Gricers and put them in a zoo to study. And I mean, that's something you could never say in this age anymore. But I thought it was interesting because they also did some crimes back in the day. Petty crimes like hacking the radio communication or stealing of a train, nothing too big. But after this, the Gricers kind of disappeared, the term disappeared, and they weren't really known for anything anymore. And that's when we started to build a fiction. I thought, what if these Gricers really started hiding in the darker places of society, doing their own thing? And what if they've been doing that for years? How would that look? What kind of culture would they develop? What if they really love trains so much that it's more important than anything else? What would that mean? And what if they would form their own cult even and make it more extreme? Because we're building a horror game, so it has to be extreme. And it has to turn into something savage. And they believe in something, and it really creates friction and conflict with the rest of society. And then it became interesting. And I think that's the question we asked ourselves, and that's what you're going to find out in Demise of the Gricers.
I think that really works because it sounds like such a weird, crazy, fantastical thing, but because it does, in fact, have its roots in reality, in something that actually did exist, that line starts to blur a little bit of what is real and is it possible that this could have actually existed? And I think it really did help. And you provide a lot of the backstory beforehand to players as well, before they even come in.
But I was worried about this, and we really had to build this up slowly, drip feed them from the first moment we could about this story, what they're going to do, and own it to the max.
There are two different versions of Demise of the Gricers. There's a 2-hour version of the game, and there's a 4-hour version of the game, the one that both PG and I played. What prompted the decision to offer these two different versions?
So before this, we had only a 3-hour version. We actually designed the game for it to be played 2 times. That's what we learned from I Can Hear You. I Can Hear You, people came back to play it many times, not because it was designed to be replayable, but people just either didn't finish it or just loved the game mechanic in itself and wanted to have the feeling again. We even have the record of one group that played it 8 times, which is crazy, and they didn't even finish it all the times after they finished, so that's also a funny thing. But we thought, okay, let's design it this way. Let's make it, if you can come back, you can do more difficult missions and more challenging missions, and you can go for like the actual secret ending, a little bit like a video game. And this worked for some people, but as soon as we got people that came from very far, like you guys, it started to feel unfair because Sarah Dutt, for example, she came immediately back because she wanted the actual ending. She played the game 3 times. That to us felt like, okay, wait, if they're paying so much money to come from far, this is new to us. Maybe because people really wanted the ending, we got this feedback from other people. Oh, I wanted to do more, and now it feels like I cannot do it and I have to wait for years or a lot of money. That was one of the big drives for us to create this extended version. Then we also had people that were dabbing into this and didn't really know what they would expect and weren't sure if this was something for them because our reputation grew. Again, we were not used to having this many escape room players, but more escape room players were joining. And this worried me to an extent because we got more and more people that just came to play because it was so high on this list, even though you could tell like, hey, this is not something you would normally do or like. This is definitely outside what you would normally play. It's not an escape room. We told you why you're coming here expecting it to be an escape room. But also people that just wanted to try it out. And then I believe we give a lot of value for our price, especially if you look at it per hour.
You give an unbelievable amount of value for price per hour, price per performer, price per square foot, price per innovation. It doesn't matter what metric, you're giving a high level of value.
Thank you very much. I'm already blushing a little bit, but yeah, thank you. We thought if we could lower the entry price for them and lowering in terms of the hours, that would be a nice entry point. Also, for the more local people, this is a perfect solution. It skips the more challenging and more innovative and unique missions, but it does give a good feeling about what a real life game is because there are just not that many around here. I don't think there are that many in the world, probably.
There are not very many in the world.
That makes perfect sense to me because when we were booking the game, we went over this past summer and I was like, 4 hours, that's crazy. And in my head, I played Stay in the Dark in the Netherlands, which is not knowing what your game would be like. That was maybe the closest experience that I had to compare it to. And I'm thinking, I almost died in there. Like it was too much adrenaline. I don't know if I can take 4 hours of this. 2 hours sounds just about right. And when we got into the game, the on ramping is so long and it was so involved just getting dressed and getting ready. And about an hour in, I started panicking that we only had an hour left, and as it turns out, and I tell this story in one of our bonus episodes over the summer, you can go back and listen to that. But there was a mix up in the way we booked our game. And so, it turns out we ended up getting the 4 hour version. You thought we booked it. We went in expecting 2 hours. I'm so grateful that happened because the 4 hour version, if you're an enthusiast, if you're interested in this type of experience, that is absolutely the way to go.
If you are traveling to play this and you actually want to do this, just play the 4 hours. There's really
goes
no
by in a
question.
flash.
Yeah, it's the fastest 4 hours I think I've had in my life. But beyond that, if this is something you want to be doing, you want to do the 4 hour version. If you are not interested in this, then you're just not interested in this. The 2 hour version isn't going to make you more interested.
And I'll tell you this much. All of my friends that I played with had no idea how much time had elapsed. That's how in the world they were. Like the time just literally became meaningless, which is a crazy thing to me.
My wife, Lisa, this was not her style of game. This was not something that she would have chosen to play of her own volition. But at the end, even she said that the 4 hours went by in an instant, which basically doesn't happen in a game that you aren't connecting with. And I think that's part of the magic of this. It's very compelling, but we're just going to keep digging deeper into that.
Thank you. That's a lot to unpack what you've just told, but yeah, thank you very much.
As I just mentioned, there is a lot of onboarding, which is to be expected when you're introducing a whole bunch of totally unique mechanics and also safety features, and there's actor interactions. There's a lot to teach players. And so your onboarding is spread out over multiple scenes. So can you talk a little bit about the development of OnRamp? How do you teach players how to play this game?
Let's put it this way. We expect quite a bit from our players. This was definitely something next level, even for us.
This is a demanding game. I do want to add, this is the most physical, immersive game that I have played, the most physically demanding. It's asking more of you from a balance, from just an energy output. My muscles were very sore for a couple weeks after playing this. So that's another piece that is important to understand.
It pushes your comfort levels and your boundaries quite a bit in a good way.
Yeah, for sure. I want to definitely underline that because I want to warn for all escape room players, do not expect this to be an escape room level physical game because sometimes we have players that are super tired and that is not something you want in this game. You want yourself, your mental capacity, but especially your physique at peak performance for this game, for sure. Anyway, what I was saying in the beginning is that we had this playtest. We done this playtest. We prototyped it and it worked. And we knew we wanted to build this. And then we had to build it and we had to make it that the tech would actually provide this gameplay in itself. Because in the playtest, we were just using blankets and duvets for walls. And we were using like normal ropes. And we'd have referees like whistling if something went wrong and stuff like this. All very paper prototype. For it to be fun again, it took us 9 iterations of the tech before it finally started to be fun again. And this was horrible. It needed so much perseverance and headings from our side. And already from the second version, Alexander Gios, which I talked about before, I explained him the idea. I told him what we wanted to do. And he said, yeah, it's fun. It sounds fun. But as a friend, I'm going to warn you. I do not believe you can build this. Or maybe you can, but it will cost you so many resources and time. I just want to say it's going to be super cool probably if it works. And you believe in it, so it might, but I also want to warn you as a friend, maybe you should not do this because it might not be the best thing. And it's cool because he mentions this a lot, especially now that he was telling me this and now how proud he is that it actually did work.
If I were in his shoes and you were someone coming up to me and telling me about what you were planning to do, I would have given you more or less the same advice. I believe I have given more or less the same advice to some folks.
Yeah, I definitely understood Alex. And even though I knew this was going to be hard, we didn't expect it was going to be this hard. And especially at the end, it always seemed like, we just need one more iteration, then we'll be there. But then we went one step forward, two steps back, and in some direction, it was hard.
The thing that no one has done before is always more complex than you can imagine.
Yeah, for sure. It definitely felt we were pioneering during development. And during the game, we knew it was fun. And at that point, we got to it that it was fun again. And then we came across design issues. And these, finally, I felt, I'm in control again. This is what I do. This is game design. Now I can try to get people to play the game that is fun. And during this process, we designed this. And then at some point, we had this introduction that worked. And then you start adding other elements like the scariness, the actors, the levels, the story. And then all of a sudden, our tutorial that we had wasn't enough anymore. It wasn't sufficient. We needed more. And then it becomes dark and we need more gear for people. And we need to make it more safe. And we need to make them feel more comfortable. So helmets and knee pads. And that was the journey probably that we had throughout the development of this whole game. It always felt like we need one more thing. And still I feel like this. I still see issues that I feel that could be improved. But then again, we've really created this world with so much backstory and cool props and decorations and assets. And we're already building a new track sleeve that is one of the tech that you receive as the players that has improvements again, because after running this for more than a year, you learn what breaks more easily and you need to make it more robust. And you find out that some things that people use in a way, it's sufficient, it's good even, but it could be better.
I think you take quite a few steps to immerse people slowly. It's like when you buy a goldfish and you keep them in the bag, but you throw it in the tank and you let the temperatures match. This was the first game I played with a literal tutorial level, like in video games, because you have us practice the mechanics of the game, but in a train car that is outdoors in the bright sunlight. So we're doing the mechanics, but you're not terrified by the environment yet. And it helps you get into it even beforehand when you're putting on a ton of protective gear. We're putting on knee pads and then coveralls, helmets. And again, that starts to put you slowly in the world. It reminds me a little bit of like before we did Survivor, we have a week when we're out at base camp before we start the game, and they have us sleeping in tents. They're not throwing us on, although my first season, they did throw us on the beach, but it was a lot easier when we had a week of sleeping in tents to get used to living in the outdoors before we're just thrown out there with no tents, nothing. But there is a lot of onboarding, and it actually did, in my case, I felt like it helped get me very comfortable with how the game worked.
Yeah, sorry, I just realized that I didn't fully answer your question, but now you did it for me. But it's true. And we definitely build it up slowly, also because of the story that's quite fantastic, but also mainly because of the mechanics. And it's true, we start easy. We want you to have a tutorial. We actually, based on your feedback, which I thought was really fair, we cleaned up that first wagon. So it is now a little bit more enticing and up to the standard of the rest of the game.
I'm glad to hear it.
Yes, of course. And but what I want to add or extend upon what you've just said, PG, is that we really like it that in the beginning, it's also a bit of an easy mode, but you don't realize this is the easy mode yet. And without spoiling too much, you follow the hero's journey where you learn about the world, you go deeper into it, and at some point you hit rock bottom quite early. And from there on, you start building up again. And that's where you grow and finally you overcome your fears and make it to a nice climactic ending.
We have talked a bit about the physicality of this game. I think a lot of it is a function of what you have to do to like physically climb up and down from the ground into these trains. But I am also curious if there is any intention in terms of like, are you striving to design for physicality, or is it just a byproduct of the environment that you had to work with?
I didn't strive for it from the beginning. Our other games are not that physical at all. This time, though, because I also design games that I would like to play or to make, and I love physicality myself. But I always wanted to make a physical game. I just didn't realize it was going to be this game, but it was going to be this game because of the trains and the locomotives. They're real locomotives, real trains with real stairs. And we're actually not allowed to change anything on these trains. We could not put even a single bolt in anything. They took over 1,000 photos. We're hiring them. So again, this was a very difficult challenge for us because everything that's built in the trains, because this might make you wonder like what I've seen so much in the trains, is always built with a construction that it holds itself in place without putting a single bolt in any of these things. So for example, there is the control room, which, I mean, this is not a spoiler, it's just a room in the game for the players, not the control room for us, the control room for the players. And it has walls, it has a door, and everything is built through construction that goes through the window of the wagon onto the ground and placed itself between these wagons so it stays put. And we had to do all these smart, creative solutions to make it work. And this is definitely credit to the team because I have two left hands. I'm very good with designing and the software thing, but my companion Tim and our works Leonard, they did an amazing job for this.
And this is very similar to how the games at Sherlock in Amsterdam, or also the Amsterdam Catacombs, Alexander Yerholt's game, these games all built in historic locations have to do this. You have to figure out how you make your environment feel like it is a part of the environment without actually making any permanent adjustments to that space. It's an additional layer of design challenge. Do you ever have teams that show up and physically cannot play the game as you designed it? And if you do, how do you adjust for that?
Yes, the first time this happened was a guy who emailed us. A bit of a touching story because he was permanently walking on crutches and he so badly wanted to play this game, because he was a fan of our work. He played I Can Hear You. And we thought about this and we warned him it's not designed for this type of play. Maybe we can do something with this because we have so many options. Maybe we can improv certain things. And obviously we've built shortcuts for ourselves in different stages. So this was our first try that did this because we talked with the team and everybody wanted to do this because why not? This is going to be a very memorable experience for this person. And we succeeded. He would have a special role for his team and could still contribute to what their team needed. And we opened and used shortcuts for him so he could bypass the locomotive stairs, for example. He was fit. He could do some things. He could climb some certain bits. And obviously, we made it so that he would not have to run or get scared by Gricers when, he was walking crutches, but still made it so because he really backed those, don't make it less scary for me. So we designed some different scares just for him. And we maintained that. Ever since that, we didn't get many applications or requests for this, but we got a few and we tried to honor them and make it work.
That's really cool. There is a heavy performative element to Demise of the Gricers that we haven't really touched on in a meaningful way, with the performers constantly adding to the world through word and through action, through passive things or seemingly passive things from a player perspective. How much of this is scripted and how much of this is improvised and how much of this became scripted through performer experimentation?
That's a good question. That's nice. I like it a lot because the actors that we hire and we train, the first thing that we're looking for is how good of an improv actor are they? How good can they improvise? And how well do they get along with feedback? How well do they understand the world? How creative are they? Because most of the scenes or things that the actors do are non-scripted. And you can feel it during the gameplay as well, because we as an actor could never know you would have done this. They are in their role. And everything that happens, even most of the scares, are organic. Through time, you pick up tricks, you learn what you can do. And as an actor, you build up a portfolio of certain scenes you can do. But you might do it in a different place or just a different way, or maybe a little less long because they just had a long scene before that, or a longer version because they didn't have much or this player hadn't seen much. And you always have to adapt on what the players bring and what actions they take. Now, for the more eventful stuff, these are more scripted and they are the big happenings for you to notice and see that really progress the main story. But what I tell my actors always is when you're in the game and the players can see you, that is an opportunity for you to add to the narrative, to tell something about the world of the Gricer, to tell something about the Gricer that you perform or embody. And they really take that to heart. And what I also like is that some actors are the only few that can do that certain scene in that certain way. And others don't do that because they're a different character. But what is important is that they stay within the confines of the world building that I've built. And a lot of the scenes that exist now in the game came from the actors because that's the role of the creative director. You try to empower the people that work for you. They have to understand it, and then they can come up with super cool ideas.
And I want to underscore that these performers, when you play in English, they're improvising and performing in their second or third language. And it's incredible. At no point did we think, oh, these guys are struggling with performing in English. It just felt like this world existed in English. And I imagine that it would feel the same way in Dutch. We've seen this a number of different times over the years, and it never fails to impress me.
Thank you very much. And I also want to underline that when I read the review and you were talking about this specific character, the Red Eye agent, which is not a spoiler, and you said that he did his job very well and a lot of compliments. And I was proud, first of all, because I usually play the Red Eye character when there's English people or people that are coming from afar because I want to make it work well. But then I remembered I wasn't the one playing Red Eye character because I was walking on crutches. I couldn't act at all during this game, apart from one little thing. And then I realized, no, these were the actors that we've trained and they did this excellent job and they were the stars and they were amazing. And that to me was so cool because it just felt like, yeah, I can trust these people completely. They've done such a good job. They totally understand it. And it made me so proud.
Everyone on your cast should be incredibly proud of the performances they put in.
So one of the other aspects of Demise of the Gricers that makes it so exciting is that it has quite a few solo theatrical moments and also hero moments. How do you approach creating these, and why did you incorporate so many into the game?
This is something I genuinely love for a long time because I feel if it's a solo moment, it really feels special. I guess this was already with the Flock, with this life pool, this ending, these eventful things that it started with. But during development of the game, we wanted these solo moments in there for two reasons. Again, the vision, we had these three design pillars, and one of them was the feeling of a world. And when you split up or when you do something on your own, we create a lot of feedback and nuances in the game that the other players know something happened. They don't know exactly what. Maybe something got activated. Maybe something went wrong. And after you come back and reunite, this player that had this solo moment is going to share that moment. And it makes the world feel bigger after that because it just grows and expands. And then it feels like, oh, there's always something more to explore, which was one of our design goals for the game. And in terms of the hero moments, the Red Eye character is the most difficult character to train our actors for. But the Red Eye character is also kind of like the game master, feeling out what the group needs, what it wants. And it's super hard, super difficult because you have to read the group continuously.
They're very adaptable safety net.
Yes, for sure. And that's where you learn like, okay, this person had this thing, this person had done that, they had done that, maybe they need a little bit more. You keep always mental checklists of what a group needs or what a group wants, because that's also important. Maybe somebody just wants to do something less physical. Okay, you give him a mission or provide some context so that person can do that. For example, Tommy in your group, PG, at some point felt like I want to stay in the headquarters. I want to help and contribute to my team here. So you facilitate that as the Red Eye. And that's beautiful because, again, we have this world. We have many different missions, so to say. Yeah, we can do this.
I think it's really cool that even for people who might think this is going to be too scary for me, you did adjust the difficulty and you assisted them. And I know that you were even able to give Tommy his hero moments as well on some different missions. And so I thought that was really cool that people from different levels could experience that kind of glory.
Thank you. Maybe something I would like to share about this is that I also said we wanted to make a horror game. And I always want to try to make a different type of horror game. I Can Hear You was definitely something about terror. And I wanted a different emotion that stood central for this game. Because a horror game, it's entertainment to experience the emotion of fear, right? Entertainment, we're doing this for fun purposes and it has to be safe. You know you're not really going to die or be killed or be traumatized, but you are going to feel feelings that are maybe not something you generally like. For Demise the Gricers, we specifically said, okay, we built this whole world. We built so much to explore. We cannot make this the most scary game that's out there. In our first playtest, for example, the game was so scary, people sometimes would not dare to leave the control room. And that's a shame because there's so much to show. The emotion that we developed this game for from the beginning is apprehension. And apprehension means to feel nervous or anxiety about something potentially unpleasant that might happen in the future. That was the core of what we want to build this game about, because if you think about it, it already starts with the countdown, for example, that creates attention and is building up. And every time you feel something, there will be a consequence waiting for you and would lead to a new situation. Then maybe you have to hide, or if you've not hidden well enough, there might be a new consequence. Maybe you have to flee. And all these consequences would hang above your head, creating this feeling of apprehension. But apprehension is more bearable than feeling terror or panic. There might be some panicky moments, but not too much. So yeah, we definitely try to scale and make sure that players play and have fun.
I'm grateful that you created a safe space for players because it is nice to have an oasis to look forward to. And that kind of knowing that you have that available to you, I think does a lot to keep you from wanting to like abort the mission and just abandon ship entirely.
Yeah, it definitely helps resetting. And actually, it makes the game for some moments a little bit scary, more peaky, because after you leave that safe space, then you feel again like, oh, wait, this is the danger zone. Here I have to be watchful again. And I think that contrast is interesting.
So switching gears slightly, we wanted to talk about the safety aspect. I know that Demise of the Gricers has undergone quite a few changes over the past year from a safety perspective. What were some of the lessons around safety that you've learned from creating and running this game?
A lot, definitely a lot. And we're still learning. But what we learned gets all the hazards out. For example, we never do scares near the stairs. We always tell our actors that's your job to act and find something that makes sure that you keep your distance. Maybe you trip, maybe you let something fall, or maybe your attention goes somewhere else for a moment. But you make sure that during the stairs, this is safe. Second thing, and we don't tell the players this obviously beforehand because then they'll know that stairs are always a safe haven or like a trick they can use. But it's important that during the game, this is something where you're not chasing the players.
I'll tell you this much, that I just assume, maybe this is not a good assumption for me to have, but I assume they're a safe haven and I really took my time. And I don't think it made it less scary, but I definitely took my time going up and down them safely.
Same.
Yeah, you should. You should.
Yeah, and I was like, if I get caught, I get caught.
Yeah, for sure. Your safety is important. If you're not feeling safe, then you cannot enjoy, and that will hurt the game. And then you will feel less immersed because you're worrying about real fear. And then this is not the game anymore. And yeah, like I said, you're playing for entertainment purposes, not to actually get frightened in that kind of way. The other thing, yeah, helmets, knee pads, because you're crawling. Knee pads are so nice to have. It's still a struggle sometimes to have the right knee pads for the right person because there's so little time to try them out. But we're just trying to get more and more in that and maybe integrate it into the intro. Helmets, definitely needed. Also, getting more helmets, more variances. We have a couple, but definitely need some more. And we try to warn people a lot beforehand. Don't be tired, be fit. Make sure you don't underestimate it. Make sure that you take it seriously. We have this pretty big waiver, and that already gives off a message that this is not something you just do. We one time had team building, and their boss sent them on a whole trip during the day. They did multiple things, and one of their stops was playing our experience. And they had only been told what they were going to do through the envelope. They were only allowed to open 1 minute before the game would start, which is horrible because they had no idea what they would get into. And they had not read anything of the safety waiver. And we now have a check, how we can smartly, immersively check that you've read it. And we realized they did not. Then we immediately step out of the role because it's important. And we let them read this and make sure they understand, ask questions about it, and then they can play. And yeah, we're sorry that it takes some of your time. We always try to extend it, maybe give some more time at the end because we do want you to have the best experience possible. But it is super important. We make sure that every stairs has a vertical track so that you can make sure you can take all the time you need to go off these stairs or climb onto these stairs. And that's important to us. But what we learned during development is that still these tracks are not always immediately seen by the players. We need to create some extra nudges to make sure maybe that they, like glow in the dark tape, work really well. So that's another improvement we did over the last year.
Yeah, personally speaking, I'm torn because I think that the physicality and the element of risk is a large part of what makes something exciting. This is why people jump off of cliffs and jump out of airplanes. You know, it's exciting to do things and to push your body in ways that you're maybe not used to. And even the feeling of running from something, like physically running, your blood is pumping and it's exciting and it's thrilling. And so I don't want to say take that away, but I also think that in my head, because I went into playing this game with an awareness of how easy it is to be injured if you're not paying attention. I've been into other games before where somebody had told me, oh, I got hurt, don't run in this game. And so I didn't run. These stairs, they're big steps. For somebody short like me, they're really big steps.
Yeah.
And so I wonder if telling players off the bat that this is an area of safety, you don't have to rush. Do you think that it's going to really detract from it? Because I think the stairs, getting on and off of the trains, is probably the biggest sticking point that no amount of knee pads or anything like that is going to prevent you from tripping and falling. You have helmets that'll protect your head, but there is still a pretty big element of risk there.
Yes, we're open for all feedback, and I think it makes sense, and it's something worth trying for sure, because this is the core rule of making a horror game. If people are not feeling safe, they don't dare to do things. Like you said, people like to jump from a bridge, but they only like to jump from a bridge if they're attached to a rope and they know it's safe to at least a certain extent. If they're not feeling safe, they won't enjoy the game. Luckily, so far, it's been doing great, and I feel that most people feel safe for the game to enjoy it, like 99%. But still, if we can get that 1% to improve, then I want to consider it. For example, one thing that was pointed out to me by Tommy was about, first we had this rule where we said if you get caught, you be game over. And I felt really strong about it because I felt it was nice, because you're really afraid of the actual person, even though it's not true, you won't be game over. What we didn't account for, though, because we designed this game first like a shorter version and we mostly had local people, but something David said, and Tommy as well, like the further you come from international, that danger, that consequence just grows, because if you come all the way from America, that fear is way bigger than for a person that just has to drive 15 minutes. So that didn't come to my mind, but now I heard it and I agree. Yeah, that is definitely a different feeling. So we changed that. And I will definitely take this with my team and discuss it, because maybe we should, because if it is, maybe it should be more clear for the players that this is a safe space.
I think it helps to just leave it unknown. Just don't get caught. And we'll leave it up to our imaginations what the consequence is. I think that is a good change.
Another through line between I Can Hear You, The Nightmare of Evelyn Shadow, and Demise of the Gricers is the secretive organization known as the Red Eye. You've mentioned them before. We've talked about this quite a bit with regards to Demise of the Gricers. What can you share about the Red Eye, and why have a single organization appearing in all of your games?
Very cool question. I really like to talk about it. Maybe I can share even another scoop or news that we're doing. It's true, they all exist in the same Red Eye universe. And to be fair, I already have the concepts for maybe the next 5 or 6 games in terms of game mechanics ready, and also where I want to take this story. It's just unfortunate that it takes so long to build these games, but that's why I want to go faster and do this faster. And the Red Eye organization is definitely intriguing, and I Can Hear You was a part, and you learn something different about the Red Eye organization. In the Demise of the Gricers, it took a bit of a backstep, but you still learn some key bits about the Red Eye. And our idea is to learn more about the Red Eye in the following games, and we're building towards something. And again, I love building up tension and mystery, so you'll definitely learn more about this. And hopefully faster, because the collaboration I had with Alexander was very fruitful and cool. And the next game, I pitched him an idea, a small idea for just a mechanic. And he was looking for something new to build for a long time. And he liked that a lot and went away with and designed something conceptually that is very cool. So I want to make clear this is his project. I just gave like a little tip. And he has a very interesting hook now, very interesting story, very interesting, cool mood. The place that used to be the Secret of Eliza's Heart, their first escape room, has now been demolished and freed up with more space even. And that's going to be the location for this new real-life horror game that I also contribute and collaborate with, which is also going to be situated in the Red Eye universe. And we've decided that we're going to work together more on this and create Red Eye games together so that we can go faster and bundle our forces. And this is definitely something new.
That is very exciting.
I can't wait to try some of your crazy mechanics, but in a more escape room setting.
For sure. This is definitely a more escape room setting.
When you go out for food, talk to me about always trying something new on the menu.
Not nice that you got that. So this actually happened yesterday already. So I really have this urge to try something new whenever I see it. And I was in the store again. I did not know what I wanted. And again, I saw this new soda can with a new drink, and I want to try it immediately. This is something I just really love. So I'm not just a horror game designer. I love to cook. I love to make food. I love to try different tastes together. I love making comfort food. And this definitely also adds to it, helps me to explore new tastes. I've been for 6 months in India, and the taste and smells I had there was crazy and amazing. And yeah, I really enjoy loving this. And I guess it adds to trying new experiences as well. I love doing novel things. I love to create unique things. And it shows, I guess, in everything that I do and live. I do this also with the TV formats that we built. We've built several TV formats. And I guess it shows that every time, even if it's video games or real-life games or TV formats, we win rewards because we try to push boundaries and create something novel. And that makes me just the proudest. That's something that just drives me and gives me energy.
I'm the same way with food. Half of the time it ends in a disaster, but I'm always like, what if this new thing is the best thing I've never tasted? And I just got to know. So it's FOMO that drives me. There is a very real and sad possibility that Demise of the Gricers might end its run on January 31st, 2025. What do you feel are the odds that Gricers will be able to continue on?
Yeah, this still hurts a little bit because it's just very hard to think about. So I try not to, because we put so much love and work in this, but it's also the main reason why our part 2 of the Demise of the Gricers is on hold, something we are like half finished building or even more than half finished, but we just stopped because it's not worth investing more money into at the moment because, yeah, our lease might end. The contract has not been renewed yet, and we will stay in that uncertainty for a while because it's up to the municipality, and currently there are elections in Belgium. I was speaking to the mayor this morning there was a press event and, trying my best. And he likes it and he's open, but he also, it's politics. He has different goals and there's a big reconstruction going on the site itself. And we have to see who gets elected. That's for sure the first thing that we are waiting for. And then we can start renegotiating. It's just very tough that it's so tight to the deadline or the next renewal circus. But also the vibe and the communication we've been getting is that they definitely like what we're doing there. They're proud that we reach some quality, but because we strive for such a premium experience and we actually get a lot of international people, like more than half of our players that come to play are international, not just from escape rooms, but also because we run a French podcast with theme park people and from the movie industry and a lot of video game players. And we just have many different people playing. What it means though for the local municipality is that it's not really creating a buzz locally. And they have to care also what is good for the local community. So we're going to offer maybe some adjustments. We have created the Machinist, which is like a family and kids game, or mostly a kids game. That is quite popular locally, but with striving for Demise of the Gricers, like I said, not a title that's easily pronounced in Dutch. We have to think about, okay, maybe we should make it a little bit more mainstream, or what can we do to do this? And we actually have an event this weekend. It's like a festival on the site. We created a smaller game in the same venue on some other locations. If that is a success and stays there, maybe that's something we can add to our portfolio. And maybe we would need your help or the help from the community at some future point, because I can also see that we have to really prove ourselves. We created a beautiful trailer that we have not released yet, but maybe we just really have to prove to the mayor, like, this is something special and existed, because he just doesn't have a clue at this point in time about this.
If you need testimonials, let us know, because literally the entire reason we went to Belgium was to come play your game. And we played a whole bunch of games across the country, but that was the main draw.
It's true. And anything we can do to help you out, you just let us know, and we will do our very best to support and rally some folks.
Thank you very much.
In the meantime, just keep an eye on Room Escape Artist. One way or another, we will make an announcement about the future of Demise of the Gricers. Do know we are rooting for you and your team.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate that. And I have to say, over a year ago, we knew very little about the escape room industry, but so far it's been such a warm welcome and loving people and all of it, even the other owners and creators, and we're learning so much. But also the best thing is that everybody is just so nice, and it really feels like a community worth giving for, but also you get so much back for it. And yeah, thank you very much.
Well, we're excited to have new blood as well. I know you've already teased a couple projects that you're working on, but is there anything else that you want to talk about? Any future projects? What comes next for you?
Yeah, so I Can Hear You is coming back, that's for sure. Working with Alex on a new game that's still on the reps, but it's not a secret anymore that we're working together. We're going to expand this Red Eye universe together, so hopefully also a little bit faster. There's another game that uses the flock mechanics, something different, on a very cool, exciting location, but that's definitely going to take a little bit longer because we cannot do 3 projects at the same time. And in the meantime, we're not just exclusively building our own experiences. We also work for a lot of clients. We created a couple of reality TV game programs. One is called Destination X. It won a couple awards in the Rose D'Or in London and one of the most prestigious reality TV format awards in Cannes. And that has actually been sold to different countries. And of course, I will not have anything to do with the development of these shows in the other countries, but it is actually going to be on AMC as well and the BBC. So for the English-speaking people, if you want to look for an adventurous travel game show that we thought of, that we designed the rules, how it's been played, what rules that should be abide by the gameplay, then it's something interesting. And we're also worked on the biggest show that's coming to Amazon Prime for the Dutch scene, and it's looking really good. So maybe that also will go international. And we're pitching some new ideas for TV programs. We didn't get into this at all, but it's definitely a big part of Entered as well. So it felt weird for me to not mention this.
I'm glad you brought it up. It was the one thing I cut, and we'll talk more about it in the bonus show.
All right, that's okay.
Bonus show is getting heavy.
There's quite a few topics to delve into.
What's the best way for people to follow your work or to connect with you online?
The best way will be to follow Entered on Instagram, entered.rlg, or on Facebook. It probably has the same post, but Facebook is a little bit less used these days, anymore fueled by our community. That will be entered Mazeik because that was our original location on Facebook. But if you type entered on Facebook, you'll find it probably easy enough. And I think that's it, because that's also where we probably will post the updates regarding what will happen with Demise of the Gricers. We do have a newsletter. We use it barely, so not the best way to keep up with the latest updates. But if you're now on social media, we will post through our newsletter the biggest updates. We'll definitely use it to announce what we're going to do with Demise of the Gricers. Apply to the newsletter on our website, which is entered.be.
Okay, we will have links to all of that in the show notes.
Jeroen, thank you for joining us. Thank you for pushing yourself and your team to push limits. I truly appreciate how challenging it is to conceive of something that doesn't exist and figure out how to make it happen. And not just make it happen, but make it happen in a really particular way. And the drive to keep iterating on that and making it into the best version that it can be. It is hard work. It is tiring work. It is expensive work. And seeing the way that Demise of the Gricers has developed and the trajectory of your career, and even the ways that Demise of the Gricers has changed since I played it, is deeply inspiring to me. It is always impressive to see such a complicated beast of a game continue to adapt and do so relatively quickly. So I have deep admiration for you and your team for all of that work, and I cannot wait to see what is to come. Regardless of the future of Gricers, I am so excited for the future of Entered.
Thank you very much. I'm also honored to have these really good questions, because you did your research and that helped to get to interesting answers. So thank you, and thank you for all of you playing.
This episode of Reality Escape Pod is produced by Teresa Piazza with support by Lisa Spira, Jana Urbas, and Richard Burns. We're edited by Steve Ewing of Stand Inside Media, music by Ryan Elder, logo by Janine Proct, and all of this is brought to you by RoomEscapeArtist.com, your home for well-researched, rational, and reasonably humorous escape room and immersive gaming content and events. Reality Escape Pod is mainly supported by Patreon backers. Creating these episodes takes a lot of time, care, and money. We're invested in creating a robust community of creators and enthusiasts, and we need your help. A lot of big content creators, they reach a point where their Patreon is so big that they don't know who is joining. I promise you, we are aware every single time someone backs us. We know who our long-term backers are. We send out handwritten letters, wax sealed by hand, to every single person who backs us on Patreon. We, as a team, celebrate every single person who joins because it means so much to us. The ongoing support that we get from our patrons is everything. It is so hard building a media business in this era, and we are only able to do it because of the continued support of so many wonderful people. And if you have not yet joined, I hope that you can consider it if it's something that you can afford. And for everybody who is supporting, we do provide a lot of extra content that we put a lot of love into. Every single episode has a bonus after show. In between seasons, we also make extra bonus content that only goes out to patrons. And we also have, for our higher level supporters, the Spoilers Club, where we dig deep into escape rooms and talk about everything that went into the making of them, the running of them, and the behind the scenes with the creators. Both shows are a labor of love, just like the one that you just listened to. To learn more, visit patreon.com/roomescapeartist. Link and details in the show notes. I would also like to thank our highest level Patreon supporters: Karen, Byron Delmonico, Mark from Keystone Escape Games, Paula Swan, Rex Miller, Chris Laughlin, Panic Room, Pat at Olivier Escape, Escaparium, Breakout Games, and Derek Tam. Thank you for your ongoing support. If you're looking for a way to support Reality Escape Pod that doesn't cost a dime, go on to Apple Podcasts or Spotify and leave us a 5-star review. Bonus points if you say some kind words. We put so much love into every single episode, and it means the world when you tell other people that this show is worth listening to. There's a lot of podcasts out there, and social proof matters. Your words matter. They help us immensely.
I was in India, and I love the food in India. And like I said, I love trying new things. And I was craving for something different than curry or something else. This was morning, this was breakfast. And on the menu, it described this thing called a sandwich with chocolate paste, olives, and melted cheese.
Talk about taking a risk.
Yes, exactly. It sounded horrible, but somebody put it on the menu, so who knows? Maybe this was actually good, you know?
Maybe it's the best thing you've never had.
Exactly.
You never know.
So I ordered it.
I relate to this so much.
Already, I was a bit suspicious, but it's also not too abnormal that the chef and the persons that brought it joined and stood at the table, because sometimes in India you have this, because you're a foreigner, you attract attention. And they wanted me to try it, and I ate it, and it tasted disgusting. It was horrible. This was not something you enjoy. And I asked them why was the interest, and they said, yeah, this was the first time somebody had ordered it, so they wanted to see how it went. This was nice.
So you were a public beta.
Exactly.
No. This was a troll move. This was a joke item that all the locals know about.